The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com.
Welcome to episode 3 of Work the Left Side. This week I am joined by Sean Only, and we talk British wrestling. Obviously we talk Rampage Brown, we talk moments in wrestling and the importance of them compared to just exhibition matches. We also talk horror films, so if you've got any love for horror films, it's you'll enjoy that as well. But yeah, dude's awesome. He's just a really cool guy to talk to. He's been around for a while, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. So, and I hope you enjoy hearing what he had to say as well. So keep your eyes peeled, watch, enjoy, and I will see you next week for episode 4, which I will post information about during the week next week. So I will see you then. Hit subscribe, hit notify. Follow us on Twitter at Work Left, and you can search Work the Left Side on Facebook and you'll find the group there. Come say hi, and that's it really. So I will let you crack on, enjoy the episode, and thank you. Welcome to episode 3 of Work the Left Side. I am being joined this week by the one and only Sean Only. So hello Sean, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, man. Are you well?
Yeah, man, I'm all good. How's yourself? How you keeping?
Not too bad. Obviously, kind of getting a bit sick of the whole lockdown situation, but that's the same for everybody. So, yeah, I'm doing as well as can be expected. Keeping on. Yeah. I don't know what that meant, but yeah, that's what I'm doing.
So, just general chit chat today, same as with other people, just talking wrestling, talking British wrestling. Because I obviously want to kind of put that out there a lot at the minute, because obviously with everything being kind of closed down, it's very easy to kind of forget just how cool British wrestling is and will be again when everything kind of comes back. So
yeah,
just talking to you about, because obviously I've been looking through your sort of resume, the companies you've worked with. I've seen you shed loads in Tidal, because I'm a Leeds, I live in Leeds, so you're in Leeds loads with Tidal and BWE, True Grit and Rise.
Of course.
For NGW and TNT and Wrestle Island and various other ones as well.
So yeah, I've kind of done a little bit of everything really over the years. I think maybe people don't realise how long I've been chipping about for, because I kind of had quite an extended period of absence as well. So I've kind of been here, there, and everywhere. You know, like mostly up north, but you know, kind of a bit of a mixed bag.
Because you turned up, you wrestled for like 3 or 4 years, didn't you? Then you sort of went AWOL for 5 years. I know we talked about it before the show started, kind of thing, and you're saying that was because you was contracted to a band. So
exactly that. I mean, there was a lot of factors going on. You know, I was young and whatnot, but like I started training wrestling when I was 20, 21, something like that. So I got into, I mean, that's not crazy young, but by the standards of the time, it was pretty young. But probably by the standards of today, it's not really that young at all. But I certainly wasn't mature. I didn't really take it all that seriously, and I was playing in bands and stuff as well. So I'd like, my attention was kind of split between the two. I didn't really know which path I was necessarily going to take. So I was sort of darting in between both paths, really, if you know what I mean, without really particularly taking either of them massively seriously. Again, indicative of like my age and my maturity and stuff at the time. But things sort of started taking off for a band that I was in called DC66, where like, you know, we had a manager, and things were looking like they were sort of snowballing, and they were going to go well. But that, like, as is often the case with those things, they didn't really transpire to be quite what we thought they were going to be. And long story short, like I was made to sign a contract because they knew that I'd done professional wrestling in the past. I was made to sign a contract which precluded me from doing any dangerous sports. So wrestling was like completely out of it anyway. I mean, to be honest, like my time was so much taken up with with band recording, touring, and all the things that you associate with being in a band. I probably wouldn't have had much time. Wrestling was kind of out of my mindset for the most part anyway. But I was precluded from doing it like contractually anyway. So that was why I was out for so long. And then when I came back, like again, it was a bit of a gradual thing. So I'd been out for so long, like I'd kind of lost a lot of the contacts. Like the scene had changed so much, and I hadn't wrestled in that long. Like I mean, I wasn't in the mental or physical condition to be like wrestling properly, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I feel like it probably wasn't quite as much as a 5-year gap, but it was 5 years until I was like seen again, if that makes sense. It was probably about like 4 years I came back, and it was when I did come back that it was like, I want to put kind of everything into this now. I want, you know what I mean, I want to commit to this in kind of like a way that I'd not done previously, and make that my primary focus and whatnot, which is exactly what happened. I sort of trained hard for a year, and then I was kind of like back on the scene or whatever by, I don't know, like 2014, 15. I'm not great with years, but something like that.
Yeah, I think looking at things, it's obviously, yeah, I'm obviously just going from when like your last show was, like on your CV to the show afterwards. Obviously, you would have been in training for like a year before, or give or take, before that show, wouldn't you? So yeah, so you wasn't out of it for 5 years. It was just getting yourself back ready again.
Yeah, of course. I think picking up sort of very very small, kind of like tiny little like working man clubs type shows to get me back into the swing of things before the things that wouldn't necessarily show up on like match databases and whatnot. I think the other thing as well, because the majority of the early part of my career, like before that gap, I was predominantly wrestling camp shows, which is something that I've dabbled in here and there, like done bits and bats of like throughout my career, but it's not something I've done a great deal of since I came back to wrestling. Whereas like previously, that was where the lion's share of my experience was. It was doing the camp shows and doing the camp runs and doing, if not even necessarily the camp shows, like the camp style shows.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, that's not necessarily complimentary, unfortunately. And that is in no way slagging off camp shows, because camp shows are great and they have their place, but there's a whole kind of like subgenre that goes with it that isn't necessarily. Do you remember all like the old tribute shows and all that kind of stuff? You probably
fake takers and the fake raves and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's like, and again, I'm not trying to connect those to like the good quality camp shows, but it's like it was. I don't know. There was connections to things back then. I'm massively digressing. I can't even remember what my point was. This is indicative and standard of my sort of conversation patterns. Apologies. Yeah, actually, like good news and bad news in terms of this podcast that we're currently doing. Bad news, like I've not had a great deal of sleep. I feel a little bit like overtired. I feel like I maybe can't construct sentences in as cognitive a way as I would normally like to. Maybe stumble over my words a bit more than usual. But also the good news, I haven't had a great deal of sleep, so inhibitions are probably loosened. I'll probably be like talking about things that I wouldn't normally, saying things I wouldn't normally say and whatnot, just throwing everybody under the bus, whereas I normally wouldn't.
Oh, good man. It pretty much suits my style anyway, because I'll ramble off on things occasionally anyway. So, but yeah, so the 5 years thing, see when you came back, did you change your style? Was there like outside influences? I know you're a big MMA fan and stuff like that, and obviously given your current look, that's obviously quite MMA based and influenced, I would say. Personally, my take on it.
Oh no, very much so, absolutely. Like I mean, that was kind of like my character's sort of like, not to sound pretentious about it, like evolved over. Have I done this too much? I'll probably do this far too many times. Air quotes. Yeah, like my character sort of like evolved over the years, but when I came back, like the idea was, There is a little bit of truth in this as well, sort of like it's an embellished character kayfabe story, but like there is some truth in it too, which is I think where the best kind of characters come from. But the idea was that I'd been away and I'd been doing kickboxing and martial arts and whatnot, and I'd developed this style, doing legit combat as it was, and I'd sort of like got disenfranchised with the fact that I can't hit people with chairs and I can't like curb stomp breaders and whatnot. So that's why I'd come back into pro wrestling, which is why I was like bringing the MMA style into I don't know, it all sort of like made sense at the time, but like I certainly changed my style a lot, but like I mean it was inevitable because everything had completely changed. British wrestling was an like absolutely different animal. You wouldn't think that 5 years would make that much difference, but I mean like just like what we were talking about with the tribute shows, you know what I mean? Like 5, 6, 7, 8 years previous to that, but like we're talking sort of like 2014, 15 is when I came back.
Yeah.
So like the previous 5 years, like earlier than that, like and going beyond into the early 2000s, those tribute shows were the most prevalent things in British wrestling. That was something that you would like aspire to get onto. You know what I mean? That was like I don't want to say like exemplary, but that was unfortunately indicative of the standard of the industry. And there were a few good companies shipping about, and obviously we had like some wonderful cam show type companies still doing their thing. But yeah, like British wrestling has never been in the bin like some people think it was, but comparative to how it like progressed in more recent years, the last 5, 6, 7 years. It was relatively bin worthy. Yeah. That makes sense, doesn't it? You know.
Discussed this with RJ Singh last week. Kind of, there was a bit of a flux, wasn't there, where you like you say you got your tribute shows and that was about it. You know, the local British wrestling was like a fake Undertaker or a fake Ray, and then come circa 2010, that's when the influx of people just started putting on good matches, word of mouth, probably the internet. You had companies like NGW finding the feet, Southside finding the feet, Progress, ICW, PCW. There's a lot of good promotions throughout the country, kind of thing. I think British wrestling not peaked again, but it definitely got the ball rolling to where it is now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that sort of period that you're talking about there, and all those companies that you mentioned there, that was kind of like that was the springboard that was needed to then bring British wrestling more into like, I mean, I don't want to say mainstream because it's never got to the point where it's like fully mainstream, but I mean, it was on Saturday afternoon on ITV for a short period of time. You know what I mean? And you can watch it on BT Sport right now with NXT UK. I mean, that is mainstream. Like when you think about what it was like when it was the tribute shows days, and FWA was the biggest thing that we had, but by a country mile as well. FWA was the biggest company by, or at least in terms of public perception and like the internet and whatnot, biggest company by like absolutely light years. And yeah, I mean, like it's a different animal. Like it's barely comparable. Like it's wrestling, it's still people in a ring, so it's like it's the same in that regard. But like it's almost yeah, it's great anyway.
Well, that's it. But yeah, I think it's just there's a lot of hard work from a lot of people, and it's just like it all kind of. I think all the pieces fell together at the right time. You had the talent, you had the people willing to back the talent, you had the fans who were desperate for it. So I mean, I've seen you in Leeds loads at Tidal. Used to love going to Tidal all the time when it started in Cockpit. Then it went up to Leeds Uni, and you had a good roster of. They brought people in, but you had like a solid base as well. Where you had like yourself, you had Liam Slater, Dan James, were the key three for me. You three were kind of like the local boys. If obviously I count you as a local boy, and it goes from there. So how did you find? Obviously, I always thought you lived in Leeds, but I never actually realised.
No, I've lived in. I'm from Birkenhead, which is just near Liverpool.
Yeah.
Originally, but I've lived in Leeds. Like this is where I started training. This is basically why I moved to Leeds. I was looking for a place to start training. I decided like, you kind of have that idea growing up, maybe somewhere in your subconscious, being a pro wrestler, that would be pretty cool. It was definitely like somewhere deep rooted in there, but also there was that idea of like, that's not a thing that people do. You know what I mean? It's a thing that maybe superheroes do, or like, you know what I mean, larger than life Hulk Hogan's or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not really a thing that you do in the. There they go again. There they go again. It's not really a thing that you do in the real world. But yeah, just sort of at some point in my late teens, I started maybe thinking I might be able to take that idea a bit more seriously. I started looking for places to train. There was various choices. Like, I mean, I'm going back to like the early 2000s now, so it's not like there's a training school in every city. I was in a position where I had to move somewhere to learn to wrestle basically, and without really knowing too much about all the different places, like without knowing too much, I wasn't massively educated on British wrestling at the time, because like who was like what was there to really know about British wrestling aside from the World of Sport days. So I picked Leeds partly because like it seemed like a nice city. I had a look around and it was pretty cool. Like I said, I tried out a few different training schools and whatnot. But yeah, also because it was Jeff Kay and Drew McDonald who had legitimacy and like heritage and whatnot with the World of Sport connection. So yeah, so I moved to Leeds in the early 2000s, and I've been here. I've been here ever since. So yeah, no, in a very long way of answering your question, typical to myself, I do indeed live in Leeds.
No, I suppose you haven't got the accent. Well, it's like me to be fair. I've lived here for 20 years, and I still would like to think I don't sound Yorkshire. Same as yourself, you still sound like you've got your native accent. So I just presumed you may have flitted in between. So
yeah.
you don't sound like a Yorkshireman. Not to be.
It's taken great effort and resolve to stave that Yorkshire accent away. Like,
yeah. I read up, man. Rampage was one of your trainers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not so much like he was more like a bit of a mentor, and like I certainly went to a lot of his classes and to his seminars and whatnot. But yeah, it was like I guess when I first started coming back, when I was traveling with NGW a lot, I just feel like I learned so much from him that although I didn't train with him as much as you would sort of normally associate with someone that you would class as a trainer, if that makes sense. I felt like I learned so much from him during that time that like I would put him in that esteem, if you get me. So yeah, because Rampage he's the man. Like it's almost a universal, just accepted truth. Just like ask anybody. Everybody knows it. Everybody agrees. Like in British wrestling, Rampage is the man.
Yeah. He's a scary bastard, isn't he? I've just like seen him in the ring so many times. Like I hope that when you was training, you had a nice soft side. And he didn't just annihilate you constantly.
Yeah, he's. I mean, that's the thing. That's why Rampage is the man, and that's why he's appreciated so much. Well, not the only reason. Like there's a myriad of reasons, but it's not just that he's the best in the ring. It's not just that he looks the shit. It's not just that he's terrifying and looks all kind of legitimate and awesome, which is obviously the case. Like he's a sweetheart as well, and he's there to help, and he's just a good guy. And I'm not being funny, but I'm not the sort of person that's just going to say everybody's a good guy because you're meant to say they're a good guy. Like, but no, he's a genuinely he's a top bloke.
Awesome. So as I mentioned, obviously with the title shows, you, Liam Slater, Dan James seem to be very much of a clique.
The terrible trio.
That's the one.
The Leeds match.
Stories to be told?
What's that, sorry?
Any stories to be told? Any of you three, Mischief?
Oh man, like yeah, probably way too much. Yeah, like in all seriousness though, yeah, me, Dan, and Liam, I think we all kind of like learned a lot from each other. We were sort of paired up together in terms of like we were all wrestling each other. It was a very like incestuous kind of like group. We were traveling a lot to a lot of different companies, wrestling each other a lot, like teaming up a lot, and involved in storylines and angles and like kind of everything else. Like our sort of careers were all very much intertwined for like a period of time. Like, but particularly in Tidal, no, they're great guys. Like, it's a shame that Dan kind of became disenfranchised with the wrestling industry, really, because I think that the sky was like the limit for Dan. Really, I think he had such good character, such good timing, and such good understanding of what makes a heel and what makes a heel tick and what a heel needs to do in the ring and in terms of like the mechanics of it and whatnot. But yeah, he just got burnt out with things, and he just sort of got disenfranchised with wrestling. So that was
shame, because
he wound down.
You kind of got genuine heel heat when I saw him at Tidal. Like you sort of said, I think it was just the timing, everything about him. He just kind of, the character, he knew how to work people. It's a shame, because I think he was not really good at what he did. Liam as well, though. I don't know if he's back in the ring, but last I heard, he was just PTing, and it sort of seemed he was one that I would have put money on, going up the ranks and being a name as well.
Things went incredibly well for Liam for quite some time. Like, obviously he was involved in World of Sport, and he was involved with like every sort of major company that you could think of. Funnily enough, it was a similar, not to speak on his behalf or anything like that, but it was a similar thing with him. He got burnt out with wrestling. He got burnt out with various sort of negative aspects that come with wrestling that I'm not going to get into here. But Liam is actually very much back with his. I don't know if I want to say like both feet in, but he's very much back in wrestling. There's a new training school starting up soon that Liam is helping run with another gentleman called Nathan Black. It's going to be starting up in Sheffield, which I'm going to be heavily involved with as well.
Nice.
It's just very unfortunate that, the COVID is very unfortunate in all manner of ways. I don't want to detract from any like real serious aspects of it, but no, it's just real unfortunate, because just before the COVID stuff started, me and Liam had started this big angle in Rise, where we'd done this big fake retirement angle where I was like pretending to retire like the horrible, evil, despicable heel that I am. I brought in my former my best friends in the world, Liam and Dan, to the ring. Both of them retired, but like we were just having this big send off. Like my last night in the ring as well. Did the big swerve, turned heel on them, beat the shit out of Dan, beat the shit out of Liam. Or the idea setting up this big whole angle, this big whole storyline that was going to play out. I'm starting to think like I'm drawing the curtain to like back too much here, but fuck it, I've started, so I'll finish. There was going to play out over the year with like this feud of me and Liam and Dan involved and various other people involved. It was this multi-layered thing. But yeah, obviously COVID put the kibosh to that. So if it wasn't for that, you would have, because this would have been like right at the start of all this business, and that would have just been the beginning of Liam getting his name out there. I would imagine, knowing Liam as well as I do. So yeah, if it wasn't for COVID, you probably would have seen a fair bit of him. I would imagine that. Again, another thing that COVID has put the kibosh on.
Well, when things get back to normal, man, fingers crossed. They've just put a pin in it for now. When everybody's running shows again and doing the norm, we kind of know what to look forward to now. We've got a long, lengthy feud between you two guys for the people who can get to Rise. Yeah, that's got me sold. I'll go to shows to see that feud. So pull the curtain back, man. It just gives us a little bit of a taste. Obviously you mentioned those two guys. Sort of, obviously, it's kind of like just losing a little bit of the way. Obviously, we've touched it before. You've got your music. But do you kind of find yourself a bit more balanced because you've got other loves as well? Like the music, horror films, just stuff like that. Does it help you stay a little bit more balanced so you don't feel out of sorts?
I'm gonna just randomly drop a name in here. This is gonna seem like totally out of context, but it does make a lot of sense in the context of the story. Because to be fair, I've not spoken to him in time because he's not been over here in so long. But I used to be quite good pals with Paul London, and one of the first times that we ever interacted, I was just picking his brains, and I was like, "What advice can you give me in the most vague and generic way in terms of someone who's done it, someone who's been there? Like what words of wisdom do you wish you'd heard, or what words of wisdom can you pass on. You know, like I say, in the most vague kind of like anything you can give me, anything to go on kind of way. And it sparked like a lengthy conversation. But one of the main things that he really put forward was like, make sure wrestling isn't everything to you. Make sure you've got other things going on. Make sure that it's not all consuming, because when it gets all consuming and when it's negative, all you've got is that negative. If you've got other avenues, or particularly like with wrestling, it can be a stop-start thing with like injuries and with show cancellations and with various factors. It's a very, very changeable sort of cyclical thing. Excuse me. So he really put that forward about making sure that you've got those other interests and those other avenues, which I had anyway, but I made sure that I didn't kind of close them off. He's a smart dude. It's like he's someone that definitely would advise taking advice off, despite his kind of zany nature. He's a very bright, switched on guy. So like I've made sure that even if playing music wasn't necessarily a priority and it was kind of on the back burner, because there's only so many gigs you can do when you're wrestling every weekend, and there's only so much time you can dedicate to recording when you got to train and do various other things. I always try to make sure that there was some sort of creative thing going on, like musically, or something going on with the band, or
something that you kind of had control or more control over, because obviously wrestling is one of these crazy, like a crazy beast that can spiral out of control, I would presume, because you've got so many people involved and so many things that can happen out of your control. It's just it's just nice to have that something that's yours.
That's very astute, actually. Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. Yeah, I think just having I can't really put it any better than that, really. Yeah, having something that I've got control over, that's not got all those scary variables. And the other thing is, it's like as crazy as any stage performance gets, it's like probably I'm not gonna break a leg or like injure myself. Whilst playing guitar or a band practice, where I was like, that's a very real threat, kind of 24/7 with the wrestling.
Do some crazy stage dive off a big speaker or something.
Eddie Vedder style.
So, obviously, we've touched on other interests like music and stuff. I'm gonna sidebar a little bit, just because anybody who knows me knows I'm a massive geek film fan. And I've been meaning to ask you this for ages, in all fairness. So I'm just going to do it now, whilst we've got a public platform. Top 5 horror films, man.
Oh, okay, right. Like this is actually really, really easy, because this is the sort of thing that I think about all the time, because I'm a bit weird like that. I'm a bit obsessed with these kinds of. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting, like thinking about what the best examples of things are. I think like what the pioneering or the most important things are, and I think once we sort of categorize them, we can learn from them better. And I don't know. I guess I'm trying to intellectualize something that's probably a bit trivial, but like it's something that really interests me. Okay, right. Anyway, okay. Top 5 horror movies. So this isn't like just off the top of my head. Like I said, this is something that I've thought about before. So like number 1 is Halloween, 1978. John Carpenter, Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance. Like for me, it's the greatest movie ever made. Like, I mean, it changed kind of everything. But it's one of those films where, despite the era, you can look back on it and it's still got a kind of cutting edge quality to it. You know what I mean? It's just like there's something inherently like, I mean, it's a dude going around killing people, but there's something inherently beautiful about almost every moment of it. Well, we'll do a little mini review for each one as we go down. Number 2 would be Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, I think. Wes Craven, Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp, and various people. Lynn Shay making an appearance. A lot of people forget, horror icon in one of her early horror roles. Again, it's just perfect. It's terrifying. You know what I mean? Like, particularly, and maybe it wouldn't quite have the same impact if you didn't kind of grow up with it, but it's like, it's so menacing, and like it's successful. I think like a sign of a really great classic horror movie is something that can make something from the real world scary. Like take something that is in your reality when you're not watching the film, and it's scary, and it made going to sleep scary, and we all have to go to sleep. So you know what I mean? Number 3 would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, the Toby Hooper classic. It's visceral fear personified. Again, like a real good sort of indication of a great horror movie is if, like, as you're watching it, it gives you that feeling of, like, I mean, this should be the case for almost any horror movie, but it gives you that feeling of like, oh, holy shit, I do not want to be that person right now. Like, I can feel what it would be like to be that person, and I don't want to be that person.
Genuine.
And like the whole final scene at the dinner table, like, and I mean, there's a lot of screaming going on, and there's a lot of close-ups and like crazy camera angles and stuff, but it's like, unlike any other film, it feels like you are there, and it's horribly unpleasant, but in the most amazingly, beautifully entertaining, fantastic way. It's weird when you describe horror films, and, like, you know, if you're a big horror film fan, it's like, oh, it's disgusting, it's awful, it's so unpleasant. I loved it.
It's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Number 4 would be a slightly more obscure one, but it really, really shouldn't be. I think it's 2009 or 10, I can't remember. Ty West, a movie called The House of the Devil. Basically, it's done in the style of an early 80s movie. It's got like a sort of satanic cult thing going on. It's about a babysitter. Don't want to sort of give too much away because it's a bit like a little bit kind of twisty, if you know what I mean. But it feels almost more like a movie from, you know, 1981, 1982, that kind of era, than movies from that era. And not that that's the only great thing about it. It's just an absolute masterpiece. Like, Ty West is a genius. Almost everything that he's touched has been absolute gold. And yeah, start to finish, like, just directorial, lighting, acting, pace, mood. It's unreal, absolutely amazing. Like, I know you're a massive film fan, so like, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but
No.
if I can ever recommend one movie to like film fans, like The House of the Devil, it's awesome. Yeah, watch it and let me know what you think as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, number 5, bit cliche, but Scream. I love it. It's just the best. Absolutely love it. It's like, it's fun and it's smart and it's like scary, and I don't know, man. It's
kind of
the best. It's a bad rap in horror circles, but
it kind of relaunched the whole horror scene as well, didn't it? Kind of thing. Because I think prior to that, it had been kind of really quiet, and then all of a sudden, Scream came out, and then you had, I know what you did last summer. You had like a whole spectrum of horror films coming out on the back of it. So It's kind of like for the rebirth.
No, completely. Yeah, I mean, that's as pivotal as any movie for that whole kind of like horror boom, because it's not like horror movies weren't coming out. There was the odd one, but it would always be a bit under the radar kind of thing.
Yeah,
back to the big screen sort of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Sorry, I just have to get that out of the way. So anybody who's just listening purely for wrestling talk, I apologise. I am going to have to say you missed the thing off the list, though.
Yeah, no, the thing is right up there. It would be in my top 10, or if I had to do a 10, it would probably be
number 6.
Oh, I don't know.
Just like, humour me, say it's number 6.
Okay, yeah, it's number 6. The Thing would be number 6.
Good
but
man.
I can't. No, like, there's not many movies that I would give a 10 out of 10 rating to. You know what I mean? There's a couple of handfuls of films ever in history that, like, because if you're giving it 10, that's basically saying, like, nothing should be changed. And the Thing is a 10. The Thing's a 10, absolutely, for me.
Our friends over at Powered 4 TV are giving listeners to this podcast an incredible 50% off your first month when you sign up to powered4.tv and use the promo code JONAS. Powered 4 TV are one of the leading on-demand streaming services in the UK, with tons of shows from over 20 wrestling promotions from around the UK and the US, including TNT Extreme, Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, DNA Pro Wrestling, Full Force Wrestling, Ignite Wrestling, and so many more. There's also plenty more to enjoy, including an incredible archive of classic matches, live flyers with William Eva, podcasts, and so much more. Sign up to Powered 4 TV today and save 50% off your first month. Just use the promo code JONAS.
Right, we'll get back to the wrestling now, because that's what people are here for, wrestling. So, looking through the matches, I've got Dale Mills coming on at some point, and I know obviously he kind of represents Will Cruz. I can never pronounce the surname. Will Cruz. That's it. You've bumped heads a few times. I've noticed through your matches.
Yeah, we've been paired up quite a few times. Yeah, in a couple of places, I think.
He was one that's kind of been flagged as one to watch kind of thing. But he's a big boy as well. What do you like to work with?
Yeah, the thing with Cruz, like the great thing with Cruz, he's a bit of a throwback, and not in terms of like he's got an old fashioned style or anything like that, but he's got that big bruiser, looks like a mean bastard kind of look, and there isn't a huge amount of that. It's not a very prevalent look, but it's a very marketable look, and not only does he have that look, but he can very much carry it across in the ring. You know what I mean? Like he does do some quite like athletic stuff. Like whether you agree with big guys doing stuff like that is open to interpretation. But yeah, it's like not only can he carry across that menacing, I will beat the living shit out of you, thing in the ring and do it convincingly. He can also move like very, very impressively for his size, which I think is again a very marketable quality. But he does have quite an old school mentality, which I appreciate in terms of like match planning, if you know what I mean. Like he's in terms of like the stories that he wants to tell and the things he wants to get across in his matches. Like he's got quite an old school mentality and vibe to that, which is sort of fits with my sort of reasoning as well. So I appreciate that.
That's cool. When you was getting into the business, did you have anybody that you would look at as an influence? Did you want to sort of not replicate, but did you look at certain people and think, I'm going to do a bit like that, I'm going to do a bit like that, I kind of want to tweak that a little bit? Did you? So a lot of people have made like CM Punk comparisons. Was there anybody out there that was kind of who you not wanted to be, but you kind of thought, I like influencers, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
No, absolutely. Like a big one for me. This often like surprises people, like because he's kind of one that doesn't come up, all that often when these types of questions are asked. But Sean Waltman, the 1-2-3 Kids, X-Pac. So kind of going back to that mentality I was talking about before, where it doesn't seem like professional wrestling doesn't seem like it's a thing that normal people can do. It's for superheroes and whatnot. Like I remember watching the 1-2-3 Kid when I was really, really young, just like a little tiny kid, and I think that was what sowed the seeds when I was talking about that sort of like subconscious idea of kind of like it was always there. The thought of like maybe I could step in the ring one day, maybe I could do that. I think it was seeing him because it was the first time that it was like, oh, that kind of looks like a normal person. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, he was a big dude as well, and he was athletic and all that kind of stuff. But in an attainable way, it looked like the sort of thing that you could reasonably reach. You know what I mean? Like maybe in a similar way to like how punk rock always kind of spoke to me. If you know what I mean? It was always like it's not necessarily about having all the best instruments and all the best teaching and being able to play all the most technical stuff. It's like about it's kind of it can be for everyone, if you know what I mean. I think that it was a similar kind of thing with Sean Waltman. It just kind of implanted some sort of seed somewhere in my subconscious that was like probably anybody could realistically do this, meaning you could realistically potentially do this. So I always followed his career. I was always a big fan, and like he does a lot of kicks, I do a lot of kicks, so there's that.
He was definitely in the land of the giants. The dude stood out as being someone where you just looked at him and thought, oh, I can imagine just like bumping into him at a bar or something. He just kind of looked like somebody you could randomly meet, and if he can do it, then it makes it more achievable. It might be possible for me to do it, kind of thing. But the dude had just such a good work ethic. Just very, very believable. His work. It was. I mean, they're saying that basically, if they wanted to test anyone, you put him in the ring with Kid, and
of course,
if you're not a good match with him, we'll kick you out the door, kind of thing. That's how good he was. So yeah, that's awesome. That's a great name, actually. It was very, very, very overlooked. So that's cool. Going forward, man, when when normality sets back in, what's the goals? What's the plans? You got anything? Any promotions you want to be working for? Any titles you want? Do you want all the titles?
Yeah, I'd like all the titles, please. I'm basically kind of like a big Scouse magpie, just anything shiny. I just kind of want my name on it. So hang on, sorry, I'm just adjusting. Is this angle okay? Can you see me all right? Hang on. Yeah. All the titles for every promotion, and I'd like them all to pay me a really, really silly amount of money as well, if that's okay. If you can get this out there to as many people as will listen, I want to be financially reimbursed properly. No. In all seriousness, yeah. in all seriousness, like I'm going to be carrying on doing, you know, what I always do, kicking people and curb stomping them and all that kind of stuff, and winning belts and taking names and the usual Sean Only shenanigans. But my focus will be shifting ever so slightly next year into taking a more of a training role myself, which is something that I have been doing somewhat infrequently, but also fairly often over the last sort of few years. But it's something that, it's something that I've been really wanting to kind of take more seriously. And but it basically, it turns out there's quite a lot of opportunities that are arising in that field, and particularly with some of the things that have occurred around British wrestling over the last year, without going into any detail. I kind of want to be like a positive influence. It's like I've been around like forever, and like I've got a lot of stuff going on in me noggin, if you know what I mean. And I kind of want to share that, and I want to sort of like try and help people come up in the right way. Whereas like there's maybe been some examples of people not being brought up in the right way in the past. So I basically just want to be as much of a positive influence and spread as much good knowledge as I possibly can, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, can't argue with that, man. There's absolutely. I know you're involved with Wrestle Island quite a lot. I know Peter's a good bloke. Presuming there'll be stuff going on with the island in the future. Once again.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
when things get back to normality and whatnot, like hopefully.
Yeah, it seems like it sounds. Obviously, you sort of saying, but British wrestling definitely needs good role models, good people, just goodness, just positive people doing right by other people, training them up. And obviously, you mentioned earlier about Liam starting up at some point, having like a training school. I presume you'll be, a guest instructor there once or twice.
Yeah, as I say, it's also starting to get off the ground now. Like there'll be a lot more news and a lot more information about that in the coming, like I want to say weeks, but certainly months. If you follow Pursuit Pro Wrestling on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, that's your best way to find out about that. Well, that specific thing anyway. And yeah, as I say, like I'm going to be sort of heavily involved with that school as well, and potentially a couple of others. So looking forward to seeing how things unfold next year. But to put Liam over again, like he's a prime example of someone that is a positive influence and is only going to be spreading good vibes. I'm sure I could have thought of a better sentence there, but yeah, the concept is the same.
Good vibes works. Good positive vibes. That's good karma. That's the one. So, what are you doing at the minute, man? Just to sort of keep yourself grounded, because obviously you don't have the wrestling outlet, and you're still playing the music. You're watching films. You just
I'm pretty fortunate here because I've got a treadmill at home. I'm obviously just like everybody else desperate for gyms to reopen, but I've managed to find it. It's a pretty tiny little house that I live in, to be honest. Me and my missus, and we've managed to find just enough space to set up a little tiny bench, so I can do a little bit of curling and a little bit of bench press, but it doesn't really quite substitute the gym. But I mean, I'm real lucky because, like I said, we've got a treadmill in the front room, basically taking up the entire space of the front room, which I'm loves, as I'm sure you could imagine. Yeah, I've got some bits and bats at home to try and keep myself in shape. There was talk at one point. I'm going back ages now, but there's talk at one point that like, our shows are going to be back on in January. Shows are going to be back on at the end of January. I had a load of like bookings for, you know, like provision. It was obviously provisionally. We didn't really know what was going to be happening, but they always say don't trust it until the date's in your diary, and the dates were all in my diary, so it was looking at least, you know, potentially promising. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, I was in shape for coming back to wrestling for the end of January, because I've been out for like a long time. So yeah, I got myself in like perfectly fine shape to be coming back back to the ring, and I've just sort of tried to maintain that since then, if you know what I mean. Because like I said, I mean, we're not expecting shows to be coming back at anytime soon necessarily, but I feel like it's probably a good idea for me to be ready when they are, so I'm not like dying on my arse as soon as I'm asked to jump into a ring and do anything remotely physical.
Just doing like a warrior and just that's it. Just burst out, do it, and just stop.
Sorry to break it to you guys, but I'm only doing 2-minute squash matches now. It's just like I feel that it suits my character. You know what I mean?
Go. That's it. I'm done. I wouldn't purchase you that much, to be fair. So yeah, as I mentioned before, man, just the whole. Obviously, you've been around. You've got stories to tell. You've been trained up by people. If you had and sort of a goal in 12 months' time for a promotion you haven't worked for before, where do you want to go? Where do you what new waters do you want to test? Is there anyone out there that you kind of think I could have a good match with them, or I want to test them out?
See, it's tough because, like, I mean, the majority of the UK scene I've been in the ring with in some capacity or other. So it's kind of like I'm going to kind of sidestep the question and digress like ever so slightly. But I think it's a case of like there's a lot of really good young talent coming up at the moment, like particularly in Manchester. It's interesting. There seems to be a lot of it focused around Manchester's like the young guns, Luke and Ethan, who are both unbelievably talented, both as a tag team and individually. Tom Thelwell and Big Guns Joe, who's just got such an amazing character that works on any show against almost any opponent, heel or face. I mean, obviously, it's basically a comedy character that he's doing, but it's a comedy character that works in almost any context. It's not like those comedy characters where the opponent kind of has to cater their match around him. You know what I mean? It's just like so yeah. I mean, I think that it would be a case of seeing the progression of some of those young guys and like beating the shit out of them and kicking them back down to earth and knocking them down a few pegs, because they're all getting a bit cocky. You know what I mean? I'm joking there, but yeah, I think some series or some feuds or some angles or something, like some character stuff to get people behind those types of people, which is obviously where my forte lies. I think maybe if I could be involved in those sorts of things to bring those sorts of things out of those types of guys, I think that's probably there you go. There's an answer to the question. There you go.
You just reminded me something as well. I had something in mind. I think it was yourself who, on social media a few weeks ago, you made a very, very good point, which I've been meaning to talk to you about, was nobody remembers when somebody got hit by a Rigoshi, or however you pronounce the move, but you always remember when Stone Cold got hit by Rikishi.
Yeah,
you remember in wrestling.
It's moments over moves, like it's moments over moves. And sorry, go on.
Is that the mindset then when you sort of these? You say you got the next generation, not just, but these younger kids coming up. Is that something that you want to try and get distilled into them? It's all right having 5-star matches, but it's the moments that people will remember. Like you got your character, you got moments in storylines. Is that like part of? Is that what you want to distill into them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I think that because what we want is a happy medium, isn't it? We want the characters, we want the storylines, we want the angles that people remember, the promos that get people invested, and then when it comes time to have the match, then it's time to put on this 5-star. You know what I mean? Like, but just having the 5-star match without all the things, without all the contextual stuff leading up to it. I mean, most British wrestling shows are essentially spot shows. They're essentially what you could class as exhibition matches for the most part. And put on one of those 5-star matches in front of one of those crowds, and they're going to go crazy for it, and rightly so. And there's so much talent in this country that is capable of putting on those types of matches. And not night in, night out now when there's no shows, but in a non-COVID world, night in, night out, it's happening constantly. But if you can couple that with, like I say, the promos that get people invested in it, the storylines that make facilitate the matches happening, and make reason for them, and the feuds and the angles that rationalize again like why the build is happening, and make it all memorable, then they're gonna be 10 times more excited, and those rounds of applause are going to become standing ovations, and the whoops are going to become gasps.
That's it. That's good point. Yeah, perfectly put. Because again, when I've been to see shows, part of you goes to see it because you've not seen X or Y before, and they're coming into the promotion for the first time. And basically, as you said, they're having an exhibition match. But every good promotion always kind of had a 50% of storylines in there as well for the other matches. So you had a few exhibition matches. I'll go back to Tidal again just because it's fresh in my mind from talking to you. You and Liam had like storylines going on. There was just things like that. Then that's what got the genuine reactions, as you just sort of said. That's what got the gasps, the cheers, the tears, the jeers. It was all genuine emotion to a storyline that you was involved in.
Yeah, of course.
It's overlooked sometimes. I think it's very easy to forget moments and focus.
I think like to go back to what you were saying about Stone Cold getting run over by Rikishi, or like whatever the angle is, or if it's something in a ring, or a promo, or a look between the Rock and Austin, or whatever that goosebump moment is. It's like the difference being like when there's the big splash off the top, or the big like bump off the cage, or whatever. Like, people will go crazy. They'll scream, and they'll clap, and they'll shout, and they'll be amazed in the moment. But if there's one of those moments where like they're emotionally invested into it as well, it's like it's beyond just being in that moment. They're like captivated. Like once the moment's gone, they're not just screaming for that moment. They're screaming for the whole duration. If that makes sense.
And tuning in next week for it as well. It's the moments that make you come back week in, week out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I've got another top 5 for you. We've got a top 5 moments in wrestling for yourself. So you got your Rikishi.
Sorry, right, okay.
As a whole, from when you've watched it as a fan, your perspective.
Yeah, of course. The barbershop window is an immediate one. That was huge, because I was like, I mean, to be honest, that's genuinely one of my earliest memories. Just earliest memories in life. Yeah, like that was massive. Like the double turn at WrestleMania, is it 12 or 13? The Austin the Austin Brett double turn.
14.
Does the blade job in the sharpshooter? I think it's 13. I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man, see this off the cuff responses to tough questions like that.
You can't.
If this was something that I'd thought of before, I'd have it already, and I'd have like the dates and the fucking what I mean, like the angle that they were standing at each other from. And yes, I believe at a 27-degree angle, he raised his eyebrow. And oh man, I'm struggling. I mean, like Montreal, obviously, like that is like has anything in wrestling been as big as that, like, ever? Even though it was kind of like pre the massive boom period.
The only thing I can think of is Hogan being the third man. That and the Montreal, I think, would be the two biggest moments.
Yeah.
Oh, the Austin 316 quote. That's your 3 big moments, I reckon.
Yeah. I wasn't really watching. It was a little bit later that I kind of came back into watching WCW. So the initial NWO stuff, like I missed, as it was happening. Man,
Foley officer.
why is life so hard? I don't know. I'll tell you what, man. I'll think about it, and I'll send you a message when I think of some better ones.
So, and well, not anybody else, but whoever's listening as well, put it in the comments. Give me your top 5 wrestling moments, and we'll see if great minds think alike.
I think with that, because it's just like there's just such a history. Like it's not just WWE or I mean even like think about things like that have happened in British wrestling and world of sport, and you know what I mean. It's just like it's difficult to look past WWE and I guess WCW for like the mid-90s stuff, but, because it was all so huge. But it's where do you even start? There's just such a rich history to everything. Like,
well, that's your homework. So you come on the show, I'll give you some homework. Your top 5 wrestling moments. So, any anecdotes, man? Any sort of stories to be told? Any road trips? Any weird little bits of information you want to pass on to us before we go?
See, because you know me, and you know that like asking me for weird bits of information, I'm the wrong person to be asking for weird bits of information from. But yeah, like because I often get asked like about funny road stories and stuff like on these types of podcasts, and I'll be honest, like it's similar to the asking me top 5 wrestling moments of all time. Like when it comes to thinking of stuff off the top of my head like that, it's real difficult when there's such a huge amount of stuff to draw from. I think like when I think about wrestling road stories, it's more just things that have gone wrong, which is more just things that have happened in matches where it's like fuck, you know what I mean? Let me think. I think like possibly the most like as anyone will attest to, the more people that you put into the more people that you interject into a match, the more likelihood you have of things fucking up. And I have this terrible history of 4-ways. It just seems like every time I'm in a 4-way, like or a 4-way dance or a fatal 4-way, however you want to term it, just things seem to disastrously go wrong. There was one particular one. Actually, now that I mention it, there's a couple that I'm thinking of, but there's one particular one. Because the thing is, it was really early on in my career as well. I'd been wrestling for I was probably in like my second year, and everybody else in the match was like probably in their second year as well, like second or third tops. And we were having this 4-way hardcore elimination match. So basically, we had all these spots worked out with like ladders, chairs, tables, guardrails, yada yada yada, all the usual bullshit. Most of the spots involved a ladder. Now, it wasn't like a gimmick where you were, climbing up to get something. It was just we were just using the ladder. Like looking back again, it's probably a little bit contrived, but again, we were very young in the business. So the ladder's being set up right at the start of the match. I forget what the spot is, but there's 2 guys like they're climbing on it in some way, and the ladder just completely collapses, like falls in on itself. As in, not like, oh yeah, we can pick it back up again. Like, no, it's completely done. So it's like, right, well, that's the only ladder. This is British wrestling. It's not like there's a spare ladder somewhere. So it's like, right, well, every single ladder spot that we've got worked out, that's out the window. So, okay, it looks like we're kind of calling this 4-way hardcore match on the fly. Again, like calling matches with multiple people on the fly is not fun. Calling matches with multiple people on the fly when you've all only been wrestling a couple of years is just like. But anyway, so we try and persevere, and there's a spot like seriously, man. This match was so like such a mess. So there's a spot where like there's the 3 of us on the outside, and then the one guy on the inside is setting up an outside dive, but he's doing it like the Sabu gimmick where he's got the chair on the inside of the ring, and so he steps onto the chair and dives on us. So he's setting it up, puts his foot on the chair, his foot just goes completely through the chair. So we're all on the outside waiting for this dive, and he's on the inside, like with a chair wrapped around his leg, trying to get the chair off. So anyway, fast forward a little bit, and it's down to the final 2 because, as I said, it was elimination. So it's the final 2. It's me and it's Stephen Taylor Phoenix, who was actually signed by the WWE at one point. One of my best friends. And sorry about this thing. I don't know if it was your fault or mine, but I'm going to apologise anyway. So the finish is there's a table set up in the corner, balanced up in the corner. I'm selling up. I'm getting up and selling by the table. Steve comes in and goes for a spear. I leapfrog the spear and he goes through the table. Make sense?
Yeah.
But like, unfortunately, what actually happened was the leapfrog kind of got botched and he went headfirst right into my knee as I was jumping, and he was just completely KO'd. And again, like me being the inexperienced guy that I am, I'm just like, so this is happening now. Okay. And yeah, so that's probably the most fucked up match that I've ever been in, to my recollection anyway. That's the unfortunate thing. Like, there may well be something more fucked up that I just have forgotten about over the years.
So you needs to face us before it was even cool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What was I saying? Yeah, the other four-way. I don't even know. Right, okay, right. I'm going to leave some names off of this to save any kind of like embarrassment, or I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or whatever. So the referee, I'm not going to name. The company, I'm not going to name. There's another member of the match that I can't actually remember who it was, so I couldn't name him anyway. But it's another fucking four-way. And it's myself, it's Tel Bannum, who you might be familiar with. It's yes. Dan James, and there's a fourth guy as well, who I forget, to be honest. And anyway, the finish of the match is Tel Bannum is pinning the guy, the other guy that I forget who it is. And bear in mind, like, not to pull the curtain back too much and ruin kayfabe or whatever, but bear in mind, we've discussed everything with the referee before. The referee knows what the match is. The referee knows what the finish is. And like, me being a bit of a sort of cautious kind of perfectionist, and me thinking maybe this ref isn't the most experienced, which it turns out I was correct. I've really hammered home with the ref beforehand. Like, I've made sure he knows what's going on, or at least as far as I can tell, I've made sure he knows what's going on. So anyway, the finish of the match is Tel Bannum is pinning this guy, participant number 4. So he's pinning him, yeah. The ref's counting. He's going 1. He's going 2. The 3's coming down. I wait until the 3 has hit the mat, and then I come in and then I make the save. So, I'm too late because it's the finish. I'm like, oh, bollocks, I was too late. You know what I mean? Sure. So the ref is like 1, 2, 3. There's a very audible 3. I make the save, and then the ref's like, oh, yeah, match can continue. Carry on. I forget the 3 count. I'm like, what? And the thing is, obviously, like, in kayfabe, I'm happy. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I broke up the pin. But in reality, in my head, I'm like, what? Why did you do that? What's going on? So I forget exactly what happened, like the specifics, but sort of trying to think on my feet. I think like Dan was maybe selling on the outside or something. So I got the guy that Tel was pinning him. So I got the guy that Tel was pinning. Shit canned him. I mean, threw him out the ring. Went through a spot with Tel. I pick him up on my shoulder. And I'm like, right, Tel, slip down my back, give me a schoolboy, and hook my tights. So he rolls down my back, hooks my tights. 1, 2, 3, easy peasy. So I get up and I'm like, ref, he was pulling my tights as you do. You know what I mean? As you do, as a guy who's just had his tights pulled. So the ref goes, oh, did he? Oh, we'll restart the match then. For the first time, in the history of professional wrestling.
Wow.
Like, that was the right line to take. I forget what we did there. I think me and Dan worked something out where Dan got pinned by Tel, but because obviously we need to get to the point where Tel is winning, because that's what the promoter wanted. You know what I mean? So kind of how we get there isn't necessarily that important in the grand scheme of things. But like, I have no idea what the ref was like. I don't know if it was his first show or what, but like I say, because I specifically remember backstage being a bit like, I'm a bit suspicious about this ref's experience. I'll make sure he knows the finish, and then like cover my bases, and then we're absolutely fine. But no, like in wrestling, sometimes there are no bases to be covered.
It was just too nice. You tell him that the guy cheated, and he's like, okay, fair enough, we'll just crack on then. Like I said, the one referee in all of wrestling. It's like,
yeah. Yeah, you tell me, have you ever seen that in all your years of watching wrestling?
Oh, that's what I mean. He's the one guy. He's the one honest, salt of the earth referee.
He's a pioneer, an absolute pioneer, to be fair.
In 10 years' time, doing it, we'll be talking about him. Like he started it.
Yeah.
Right. I'll let you get off, man. I've taken enough of your time up. But mate, it's been an absolute honour. Thank you so much. I've got Tell on the show in a few weeks, so I'll see if you remember that story. And
well, I'm pretty sure we've discussed it subsequently. I think he'll remember that one.
Yeah, we'll see if he can. If he'll be as nice to the referee, or if he'll. So no, dude, thank you so much, man. Yeah, top 5 wrestling moments. That is your homework. Mate, yeah, seriously, can't put into words. Thank you so much for just talking to me. Hopefully you've had fun. You've enjoyed it. It's not been any other ones.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been awesome. Thanks for yay! Cool.
Wrestling!
Right.
Dude,
Awesome.
I will let you go. Absolute star. Thank you.
Take care, pal. Take care, mate. Cheers.